The removal and fitting of rotor cranks differs greatly from Shimano ones, and in this video we're going to show you how to do that. Tools that you're going to need for the job: an 8mm Allen key, we're also going to need a torque wrench with an 8mm fitting, and finally a Shimano cassette lock ring removal tool. First thing we've got to do is take the outer cap off the side of the cranks, and for that we need the 8mm Allen key. Next, take your Shimano cassette lock ring removal tool and take out the little washer that's just inside the cranks. We now need to put these back in reverse order, so starting with its outer cap, thread it back into the crank. We now need to put this insert back in the frame, but the opposite way around so that it cups over the top of the bolt that we've just replaced. And then we're going to remove the bolt, and that will push against this and pull the cranks away. Effectively now, when we unscrew this inner bolt, it's going to push against the one we've just screwed in, and that will pull the crank away from the frame. Once the bolt's all the way out, you should be able to just pull the cranks away from the frame. Next, you should be able to push the left-hand crank through the frame. When you push the left-hand crank through, the bearing seal on the drive side will probably come away from the frame and drop onto the floor, so make sure that you keep that safe, ready for when you replace the cranks. The bearing seal on the non-drive side came away with our crank, but if it doesn't on yours and it drops to the floor, again, make sure you find it and keep it safe. Before you replace your cranks, make sure you clean the axle with degreaser before putting some new grease on. To put the cranks back on, we just go in reverse order, so starting with the non-drive side. Coming back to the drive side, you can put the bearing cover on, followed quickly by the spacer. Before we put the actual chain set back on, we need to take the self-extracting bolt out, and then the outer bolt should drop out from the crank. Next, reverse the self-extracting bolt and put it back in the crank so that it's facing cup outwards. So pull your chain so that it's around the axle of the non-drive side crank. Next, put the chain set over the splines, making sure of course that this chain set is at 180 degrees to the opposing crank. Let's put the outer bolt in and do it up a couple of turns, and then you can thread your chain onto the inner chainring. The required torque should be written on the outer bolt, and in this instance it's 35 to 40 Newton meters. Set the torque wrench to the required amount and then tighten the bolt until it clicks.
By undoing the brakes and then undo the quick release. If it's the front wheel, you need to unwind the quick release slightly.